opening up your emotions is just really can be really terrifying. But there's such a there's not growth without in my opinion, like fear or vulnerability or change. Yeah. And so you can't grow if you're not willing to be humble and have the humility and vulnerability for that, as scary as it can be. I think that the easiest way to break the stigma is to keep talking about it. And so I think that there is power in communication and connection and vulnerability, and talking about it with people, being in connection and in community with folks who are, whether they're experiencing the same things. But I mean, the moment you it's scary to take that first step and admit something, right, to a group of people, or, you know, whether it's one person, a small group, a large group, to admit something. But it just makes you realize how not alone you are. And there's it breaks that loneliness factor.
I'ma be who I gotta be. I ain't living in your fantasy. I'll be real if it's the death of me. I'ma be who I gotta be. And I don't care who you pretend to be. Cause I'll be real if it's the death of me. Yeah, liars are liars, they burning in fire.
Welcome to a special edition of the P.E.A.C.E podcast. I'm joined as always by the best co-host anyone could ever have, Mr. Carlos Gottlieb.
What's up, everybody?
And we do have a special guest today that needs no introduction, but she's going to get one anyway. She is an expert marketer and go-to-market practitioner. She leads a team of consultants and go-to-market strategists herself. Calling her an avid reader is a massive understatement. We'll get into that later. She's passionate about people and mental health. She's one of those people who has a great combination of being thought-provoking and inquisitive. So most importantly, though, she is a newlywed wife, an amazing dog mom, a daughter, and a sister. I want to welcome to the podcast, Miss Ally Holmes.
Leo, you're going to make me cry. I listened to you do the intros for other people, and I was like, in my head, I was like, I wonder what Leo's going to say. And wow. I'm just going to have you just write my eulogy.
Oh, dear.
Because that was quality.
That'll be much longer. I tried to cut it short for the podcast, you know.
You are very kind. Thank you so much. Those are...
Yes. Congratulations. Did I miss anything? Did I screw anything?
Congrats.
That's something that...
No, that was that. You caught everything. I love thought-provoking and inquisitive. I'm going to add those as adjectives that people use to describe me on my resume. I'm just going to add those.
Hey,
inquisitive, thought-provoking. I love
video
it.
proof. Yeah, you just cut the little video proof of someone saying it about you.
I'm just gonna snip it, just like grab a snippet of that intro, and I'm gonna add a link to it on my resume and say,
"Yep,
this is how people describe me."
Yeah. So. I could just see her like standing off in the distance while it's playing.
just like my face in the corner. Yeah.
Staring out of a window. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I guess that's me, huh?
That's hilarious. I like to start off these like halfway hot most of the time. So I want to get to the plates eventually that you got behind you, because I know there's got to be a story. But something that I want to dive into, this is extremely selfish right now. Mm-hmm. I have heard that you have read so many books. Mm-hmm. And I think this goes right into that inquisitive and provoking, because most of the time when people read a lot, they are naturally more knowledgeable, probably more trained to be inquisitive, like, you know, your imagination is better, all that good stuff. So like, how many books do you know how many books you've read total?
Ooh, not total. I've never tallied like of all time how many books that I've read.
How many did you read last year?
Last year, I was shy of my goal, which was I was really sad about. I was at like 55 books. I wanted to be at 75. But right now I'm about at like 35. So I'm better tracking this year
for
than I was last
year
year.
Book or so.
Wow. Yes. I think that's because last year was spent so much on wedding planning, and I was just so busy and engrossed with that now I have, I don't know, more time to just like really dig into reading again. And I found a new love of it. And so I've been reading a lot, like I've been diversifying my genres that I'm reading. So that's been fun to try.
Before, was there one specific genre that you're reading all the time?
Not necessarily one genre. I would say especially reading tends to sometimes be an escape for me. And so I really love to read books that are like quick and easy. Like anything that is super quick, super easy. So for me, those are usually like romance, or those are thrillers, like things that are just almost you can like sit down and read in one sitting and they're just really digestible. So I would say those probably last year, because I've kind of wanted a little bit of an escape where like I didn't need too much thought provoking because my mind was so much on work and wedding planning and life and all of these other things that were happening. And so I just ended up, that was probably the genres that I migrated towards most, where now I feel like I've been reading more nonfiction, which I read a good bit before. But I would say this year I've read more nonfiction than I have last year.
Would you say that reading books is like your thing? Like everyone has a thing in reading, or is there something else that's your thing?
It's so funny that you ask that, because I definitely, there are other people out there that read so many more books than I do. So to say that like reading is my thing, I wouldn't say that reading is my thing. I would say, as far as like hobbies go, that's definitely my top hobby. It's definitely what I spend a good amount of my time doing, because I really love it. But I wouldn't necessarily like, I don't know, have that as a tagline, if that makes any sense, after me. So
reading 60 books a year, it's not really that much, you know what I'm saying? Gottlieb, I'm pretty sure that I have not read 60 books in my lifetime, and I've gone through 12 years of school as well as another 4 for college. I've done certifications.
I've thought about this when you said you're not an avid reader. I would not argue, but I would say that it sounds like you like to just consume content and information in different formats. So like books are essentially like, in my mind, a way to consume content, consume stories, consume information. And I feel like you listen to podcasts, you like read a lot of articles, you like watch a lot of videos, it sounds like, from when you and I have talked. So I feel like you talk to a lot of different people, which that in and of itself is information exchange and storytelling. And so I think that like reading is just one avenue for it.
That's
where like I'm not on LinkedIn all the time, like reading a ton of articles, or like on, you know, marketersdigest.com, which I know is likely not a real thing, and like reading content like that. So I do think it just differs, but I wouldn't say that you're not an avid reader. I would say you just maybe read or consume information in a different way.
That's a fair point, because I am not gonna lie, every day I check the LinkedIn stories. Every single day I'm reading probably 3 of the LinkedIn stories to see what they have to say, and I'm going somewhere else to read another story. So
exactly,
that's a good point. It's a good point.
Same kind
I'm
of
gonna
thing.
start counting those as books.
just start counting them. Just like just keep track of what you're reading. It's fascinating when you think about like how much time you're actually like consuming content. But I will say I have always been a very fast reader. And so when people are always like, I don't understand how you like get through so many books, and I'm like, I just read really fast. Like I read really fast, I listen really fast.
Have you seen that one video of that one guy who's like in a competition, America's Got Talent?
I'm the fastest reader in the world. I read 1,679 pages book within 2 seconds. Yes, go on.
And the judges are like, that is not real. That's incorrect. That did not just happen.
What is it? It was fast, so you didn't know What just happened now?
What did you learn from the book that you just read?
You said what?
The first one is pretty good.
I will chew your meat. Are you crazy? Think I had to joke with you?
I just read. I can read fast.
He flipped the book maybe like 3 times.
I know.
No. I was like, the fact that he's
Not
sitting
real.
in front of an audience is crazy.
He's serious about it too. He looks up. I did it.
Just read. I can read fast.
Breathing hard.
It's like commitment. He like really believed it. And
I
was
did it.
He like looked up and was like,
Yeah.
The commitment. Oh my goodness.
Sorry,
Carlos, what
I had
about
to
you?
bring
Do
that
you
up.
read?
I actually haven't been a huge reader lately. But the interesting thing, and it's I didn't realize that you were like a big on reading. I won't say you're not defined by as like a reader or anything, but yeah, I'm trying to get over that hump right now. To where I have an issue being too much of a busybody. I always say I want to read books, but literally I sit down and it's just like, I can't force myself to sit here and read. But the weird thing is, when I can get myself dialed in and like, what do they call it? The reader's voice. When I can hear the reader's voice, start to finish. So I've probably read like, honestly, I'm not gonna sit here and disclose how many books I've read, but
No need to show off, Los. No need to show off.
Yeah, I'll spare you guys this time. But yeah, I'm trying to get over that hump because I think when I can get like locked in, I think it's therapeutic in many ways, and it also like calms you in a way to where you can like focus on where you're at, being in the present, and like, I have an issue of like my brain being all over the place, focusing on one thing, and having like a sense of patience too. So working on it, but definitely wouldn't say I'm a huge reader, but I'm trying to change that.
I struggle with the same thing.
Yeah.
Which is why what might be good for you because you like to be on the go and like kind of doing something at the same time is possibly like audiobooks.
Yeah.
I have not gotten into audiobooks, I will say, because I don't like to listen to things on normal speed usually. And so especially when I'm reading, like if it's a book, I'm like, it needs to be on like 1.5 or 1.75x. And that ends up like warping what you're listening to anyway. So I'm like, the audiobook thing, I haven't been able to quite. I told myself I will try it, but I just haven't really been able to like find one or find a book or find, I don't know, that like works for me.
You know
but
what? I think that could actually,
something.
I think that could definitely work because I mean, right now, I don't know about you, but like working from home as a consultant on low meeting days, I do find myself with like typically like a podcast or something, but something playing in the background, and I'm actively like engaged while I'm working. So like it's kind of like it's an interesting concept. But yeah, I think I could actually like digest it even while I'm working because I got to have something playing like all of it out of nowhere, like overnight, I guess. Sometimes music just doesn't do it,
Yeah.
I'm
kind of want to be engaged or feel like you're, you know what I mean, while you're working or something, especially if you're just like chilling by yourself.
Something like mentally stimulating.
Yeah. Sometimes music is good, but not always.
Yeah. So I'm curious because we just talked about 3 different ways that we consume as well as what we consume. How has books like influenced or affected your life? For example, I'm listening to a podcast for a certain reason, or I'm reading LinkedIn for a certain reason. So like, in what way like has reading books done that for you?
Wow. There are so many books that have shaped my life. Fiction from the power of storytelling of some of the different authors that I read. And these different, like from a fiction perspective, like these different worlds that they can create, the imagination is astounding, like something I am like in awe of. Because sometimes you think if somebody is really good at reading, they're really good at writing, and I'm not as strong of a writer. It's something that I'm growing into, that I hope to grow into. But books have shaped my life in so many ways. There's a lot of like nonfiction books that I've read, self-help books, so to speak, that have really enlightened me. I remember the first book I read, like that really made such a profound influence on me. I read it in high school. It was called The Perks of Being a Wallflower. you have never read it, I highly
Heard of it.
recommend it. It's
Yeah.
a pretty short. It's a pretty short book. It's written in letter format, which can be very engaging. But books have helped me see the world differently. They've helped me learn different perspectives, how to communicate better, how to communicate differently. I think it's really made my worldview more well-rounded. As somebody who hasn't gotten to travel as much as she would like, I feel like I get to travel through my reading.
I love that.
And so it was kind of, I think about whenever going back to the question when we were talking, Leo, about would you rather lose your eyesight or lose your memories?
Yeah.
And it would be so difficult for me to lose my eyesight because of how much I love to read. But I still wouldn't want to lose my memories. If I really have to think about that, I want the memories over the eyesight.
You lose all the books that you read if you lose your memory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
wow. That's a really tough question for you.
Exactly. It's really tough.
I lose my memory every day, so it was easy answer on my end.
But so I think about that often. But I would say, reading is it's had a very profound effect on me.
Yeah.
And I could talk about books for the next hour.
So. That's interesting that you say it's kind of, giving you a perspective of the world for a person who doesn't travel as much. I think that's why I talk to people as much as I do, is so I can get a better perspective of the world. So, I mean, you're doing the exact same thing because the authors have a perspective, literally them as humans have a perspective. And then the stories that they're also creating or documenting also have so that's wow.
It's really helped me love the power of stories. And it's so interesting too, because when people find out how much I read and how much of an avid reader I am, but then they also get to know me as a person, and they're like, you're so extroverted, or you're so outgoing, or you're so easy to talk to. What do you talk about that you like to stay at home and read? That's surprising to me.
Very.
I think for me, it's also my moment of stillness and my moment of reset for myself. Okay. So it's me. It's gotcha. Me time.
That's you. So, that's you as a possible introvert filling up.
I would say I'm an ambivert.
Yeah.
That's how I would identify. I would be an ambivert versus a true extrovert introvert.
Are there any particular authors that you really admire?
Charles Martin.
Ooh, that was a quick answer.
Yep. I'll tell you why. 2 reasons. His books are incredible, yes, but also I had time to think about this because I knew you were going to ask me about books, so I did some introspection,
what questions
sitting with
Leah
myself.
Going to ask me?
Yeah, I was like, is he going to ask me about an author? Is he going to ask me about my favorite books per genre? So I wrote it all out because I was I knew.
Okay.
So I will say I did do a little bit of prep, so it's good. I have to admit that. But I really like Charles Martin's books because there is this one series that he has written. It's, if you want to call it the Keeper series, there's the Water Keeper, the Letter Keeper, and the Record Keeper. And it is about this man who is I think he's retired Navy SEAL, who is now on this quest to free women and children from sex trafficking. And this story that he has written, he has researched it and talked to people that are in that world day to day, and the research and insight that he uses to create this fictional story is that series, man. I could get emotional just thinking about it. But he does such a great job of not only character development and plot building, but also his use of words for imagery. For me, I really love reading because I get to close my eyes and see it. I can see the world, and when I can see the story playing out, it's like reading a movie.
Yeah.
And so when I get he is just.
And you said that this is fiction, based on essentially real events that he has researched and talked to different people about. Which that's just only one of his series. He's written so many different books. I'm slowly getting through the rest of them. But I love him as an author. He's
one that like I've read multiple of his books, if that makes sense.
Okay. And you said his name was Charles Martin?
Charles Martin. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have 2 more questions on books.
Please. I got you.
And then I really want to move on because there's a lot that I do want to talk about, as usual. As usual. And Gottlieb, feel free to, if you got another question on books or whatever, like, go ahead and cut me off. But how do you choose your next book to read? Like, do you have like a criteria? Get like references? Like, how do you as a reader select the next one? How do you find it, I guess, too?
A couple different things that come to mind and criteria I go through. I have like a running like TBR, like to be read list. That is, I feel like, forever growing. Usually those come from either something that I'm seeing like on social media or Instagram. I have a Bookstagram, so that's usually where like I will see other creators promoting or talking about different books, reviewing different books. A lot of it though I get as recommendations from friends and just people that I know that are like, I read this book, thought it was really good, thought you might enjoy it. And I know people don't believe me. They're like, how could somebody recommend you a book you haven't read? There's so many books I haven't read. So there's no genre that's off limits for me. I will read pretty much anything anybody recommends. I think because when you say like, oh, I only read romance, or I only read historical fiction, or I only read self-help, or I only read books on World War II, or whatever it is that you're reading about, I just think that it narrows your worldview too much. And I just feel like books teach you so many different things. And so I won't discriminate against the genre. But my mood also probably depicts a good element of it. If I feel like if I'm very overwhelmed with work or just like day-to-day life, for me, I want something that's a little bit more mindless. So I'm not going to go for like a self-help or a nonfiction book that's going to like need me to have so much like brain power to really like digest it and consume it.
Yep.
So I would say mood and everyday life, kind of where I'm at in the moment.
Okay.
And then recommendations and friends.
That was a question for everyone else who's very interested in reading and they need so that's hey, get in contact with Ally, or she just gave you the secret sauce on how she finds, her next book. Also, she said that she has a long list to be read, so she can easily give you a recommendation.
I'll share it.
Which kind of leads me perfectly into the last question that I had. Gottlieb, do you remember we're on the podcast with Ben? And Ben did his story about the Lion King, and we said that we should create a podcast series to where we're either watching movies, a TV show together, or something like that, and then we give our quick breakdown. Ally, I think this would be a great thing for you to do. But my question is, first of all, do you watch like movies and TV shows a lot? Like the correlation between the books too? Like if you read a book,
like if I read a book, do I watch a TV show or a movie?
Yeah.
I do, but I'm definitely a firm believer of, there have been some instances where I've like watched a movie or a TV show and then read the book, but chances are is if I know that there is some sort of book or movie out there that has, or if there's some sort of, TV show or movie that's out there, I'll want to read the book before I watch it.
Okay. I figured that. My question is there, and you get one here, you don't get multiple, you get one. Is there one book series or book also has a TV show or movie that you feel like it actually did it justice? As in the movie or TV show lived up to the book. She was not prepared for this question, Gottlieb.
I was not prepared for this question at all.
I feel like you prepared by
he was
trying to, I think he had a goal to stump you.
Oh man.
I'm very surprised that one thing hasn't been named. I am very surprised.
I think it's because
Ooh, this is a tough one, Gottlieb. This is
Yeah, this is really tough for me. I'll have to think on that and get back to you.
That's
because
fair.
it's not something that is like coming to mind where I feel like it did it justice. Most of the time, in my opinion, the books are better than the movies, but that also could just be my imagination.
Yeah, it's probably more so you think.
Shows.
I think that all of the movies are better than all of the books. Actually, no, there's one series, Lemony Snicket, Series of Unfortunate Events. I read all those like immediately, and I think the books are like the TV show is terrible. You know,
so you think Harry Potter is better than the books?
Well, that's what I was assuming is what you were going to say. I did not read any of the Harry Potters. Those are too big. If there's a book that I have to like, you know, do like this with my hand with, you know, like I got big hands. If I got to do like this, I'm not picking up the book.
He said.
I'm not picking up the book.
Yeah, I would say that Harry, I mean, no. Yeah, see, that's hard. I don't think that I don't know if there is. I will say they are coming out with a series of a Colleen Hoover book that was written called It Ends With Us. They did not cast it the way that I thought that they were going to, which I feel like cast plays such a critical, like who it is that's playing the role of the character plays a critical role. So I'm curious to see how that one ends up. And then the ACOTAR series, A Court of Thorns and Roses, it's a fantasy novel. They're coming out with a TV series on that, and that is a cult favorite of a lot of people. And so that will be interesting to see what they do and how closely they stick to the book on that.
Okay.
So.
Was that your answer?
Yeah. No, I don't have an answer because
he's trying to get you.
Yeah, I don't have an answer because there's not necessarily one in my mind that like has done it justice, or at least one that's come to mind.
I'll wait for it.
I haven't recently. I haven't read anything that's been a movie or a TV show.
Ally, this question, there's no pressure on. The Fast Five that's coming later.
Oh, geez.
There's a little bit of pressure. But this one, I'll let you off the hook, okay?
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate that because I'm sweating that I don't have an answer to this.
Alrighty, can you tell me about the plate wall behind you? I think there's some significance to it.
You know what? I wish that there was. There is not.
It's really nice.
Significance to it. I wish that there was. I wish that I could say that like I traveled the world and got these plates from like unique like artisan markets, but I didn't.
Okay.
I went to Home Goods and TJ Maxx and
nice. Okay.
Pier 1
that works too.
Home Goods.
And yeah.
All
love
right,
it.
The story that I'm going to tell everybody is that like these are family heirlooms, and every grandmother in a generation has passed down their favorite plate or something like that.
I really should just come up with a story and stick with it.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Even if it's different every single time,
like a militant war story or something. This one, Beijing. This one.
That's actually, honestly, that's probably a better story.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hopeful for in my office, because I'm redoing my office and I'm hoping that my backdrop is going to be more of a conversation starter.
Oh my goodness, I love that. Yeah. I always do that. Do you guys do that? Like well, I use the virtual ones, of course, but you know, I'll try to grab someone's attention with like a weird, like they've got some now that are like really I got to find the name of that engine, but it'll be like normal, and then it has like a random little like cameo or something.
Like somebody or something will come up. It's like more animated.
Yeah.
That's pretty dope.
Like if we got like a low threat type of meeting going on, I'll just try and like lighten the mood a little bit.
That's
my favorite. It's definitely good conversation starters, man.
I wish I was that person. I had the Office one, like the actual TV show, The Office one, for a long time. A lot of people loved that. A lot of people thought I was in The Office, and then Office fans were like, "Oh, is that like from The Office?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then somebody else would be like, "Oh, why are you all in The Office?" It was kind of like if you know type of thing.
Those are only like partially funny. You got like the ones that are like.
But Los, that's how I roll. Yeah. It's like I'm saying a joke so that who gets it gets it, and if you don't get it, then it's even funnier for me.
I'm an all-inclusive type of guy.
It's funny for me. It's not funny for everybody. I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, but I enjoy it. So last week we talked about. Last week was it, Los? We talked about mental health. And I did a little bit. I mean, I want to keep this conversation going for Los, like specifically, because I feel like there's a lot that we need to talk about here. But did a little bit of research, and like according to like the CDC, National Institute of Mental Health, whoever you want to reference here, 20% of the adult population experience a mental health condition, which 20% is a lot in the world, but I'm surprised that it's only 20%.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. And then on top of that, only 60% of people actually receive, of that 20%, only 60% of people receive the help that they need, like can get the help, whether it's insurance or finances or whatever. I'm curious on like, number one, what do y'all think are some of the most pressing mental health issues that we're currently dealing with today? And how do you think that we can better address these in the world? Hey, what up? It's Leo with the P.E.A.C.E podcast. Hopefully you're enjoying the episode. If you wouldn't do me a quick favor, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit like. You've made it this far. Hopefully you're learning something. Peace.
I'm still trying to wrap my mind around those numbers.
20% of the entire population.
Is it 20% of like reported mental health issues?
Yes, because I'm sure there's a country or two that probably has zero, mental health issues.
Or folks that never report it or never seek help.
Correct. Yeah. Also probably that. Yeah. But yeah, so what do y'all think are, I think anxiety is considered so like that's probably, I would assume, number one. Depression is probably really close to number two, if I had to guess. But like, what's in your sphere of people that you deal with?
I don't really know how to categorize this, and like if maybe there's like a better terminology for it, but like trauma and like past experiences have shaped a lot of people. And I think that right there is like alone, people don't even recognize that like they could get help for that, but they don't really know because it's their identity. It's who they like, literally, it's who they've been wearing for so long, But yeah, like childhood trauma, just like trauma growing up. I don't know how to categorize that, but I think that's a big one.
I think trauma is right.
Trauma.
Anxiety is up there for me. Loneliness, feeling of inadequacy. Anxiety, depression are definitely up there. And then you have like more of the serious mental illnesses like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, things like that. I want to comment on your trauma, bring the element of trauma. There's a book I recommend. It's called, have you heard of The Body Keeps the Score?
The Body Keeps the Score. I have not. I had to crack open my Notion and write it down.
I'm curious if Ben has actually read it, just because I know how much like deep inner work that he has done as well. And the trauma that he's working through, just from listening to that podcast. But The Body Keeps the Score is essentially, it's very scientific in nature in the way that it's written. So it's written on top of a lot of research, a lot of studies that have been done. But it's all about trauma and the impact that it has on like mind, body. And it just has some really unique, it's really insightful, and it's wild how trauma, like the impact that trauma has not only on your mental well-being, but your physical well-being, your emotional well-being, all of that. Yeah. And so it's a very fascinating book, especially because you brought up, if the science behind trauma interests you, that book will be very interesting.
Yeah. Leo, did you just call Ben?
I did, yeah. Ben is busy at the moment, but I was curious on if he read and if he had any thoughts, because Ben does read. He does a lot of research and stuff like that. So,
yeah.
I'd be surprised if he hadn't read that book, just because it is so like scientific in nature and all about trauma that it's pretty like heavy book to read. Like it's you read a chapter at a time, but it's insightful.
I want to talk about Ben for a little bit. So you remember, you may have saw it the other day, Leo. Ally, so pretty much, I decided to start seeking therapy. For been struggling with like a few different cases. I won't say of like crippling social anxiety, because I know people who really, really have it, like really bad. But yeah, I was just like, you know what? I kind of want to figured this out. This has just been the way that I've been for as long as I can remember. But I know now, just after some time in development, that I can change that. So it hasn't been easy so far, but like when I say like growth and development literally makes me giddy. Like when I like realize that I'm changing and getting better and like addressing like feelings and that fight or flight, it literally gets me excited, like a level of excitement that I haven't experienced in a long time. So I made a Facebook post about it. And I'm like, hey guys, like I don't think I've experienced this level of excitement in a long time. Really glad that I got therapy, type of thing. Didn't get a ton of engagement, but what it got that literally excites me so much is I've got people reaching out to me personally. Like, dude, who can I talk to? Here's what I got going on. And the first thing that I say is, I'm like, listen, bro, I am not a therapist by any means,
Don't talk to me.
Yeah. But I give like the best advice that I can, but definitely like I'm closer with some friends and some people now just because they let that guard down to me to even talk about like mental health. And these are people that I've been around for years, but we've just never had that type of conversation. So Ben sparked it in me, and now I'm passing this like challenge and like, mental wealth onto others. And it's just so exciting. I'm just, so shout out to Ben.
Always.
And yeah, Ben's just it's funny. Quick story about Ben. When I met him, Leo was like, hey, I'll be right back. Like he introduced us, straight up walked away.
I do that often.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Leo move.
Yeah. So me and Ben are just sitting there chatting. And Ben is just such like a welcoming person in terms of like, like you meet somebody, like the vibe and the energy that they give is just like welcoming, like, man, I could trust this person. Like I could talk to this person. Better yet, lack of better terms, this person makes me feel important.
Yeah.
That's what Ben gave me just in the short amount of time of talking to him. So at the end of the conversation, we all went home that night. And I said, man, your buddy Ben, man, that's a good guy. He's like, yeah. So can you tell me like 5 things about Ben? And I was like, oh shit, I can't. I don't know. We talked about me the whole time. It's like that right there. Which there's probably a lot more that should go into it, right? But like that, the way that he made me feel, I feel like there should be so much more of that in the world. Just having a conversation with somebody, making someone feel important and feel heard. Everybody needs that, and I wanted to turn around and do the same for him. Like you just want to pass it forward, but yeah, just want to talk about Ben a little bit in the journey so far. Anybody watching this, I'm not a therapist, but I can definitely try and point you in the right direction. Figure out where we need to start and next steps. And I like challenging people. So I got some phone calls last night. I'm going to be sending you this and I'm going to be following up with you because you got some homework to do. And I'm checking. I'm checking.
Hey, taking notes.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I think something that you did, which I was curious about as well, and you might have a better perspective of this, Gottlieb, than I would, but like there's a lot of stigmas that we have, whether it's culture or professionally too. Like this isn't just like a personal mental health and trauma and all that good stuff. You brought up trauma. I think first you have to destigmatize it in order to deal with it. So like you even, come to me and be like, hey, like, can I get Ben's number or whatever? Or, hey, like, I want to talk about this, or, hey, I want to go to therapy, or put it on Facebook. Like you're first like taking the stigma off that you can even talk about it, taking the stigma off that you can go get help. And I feel like that may be the step that you shouldn't kind of blow past. He's getting help is a big thing, but like you got to first be like, hey, look, ain't nobody else doing it around me.
Yeah.
I'm about to start this thing.
Yeah, you're right. I think I just woke up one day and was like, I'm tired. You know what I mean? I think that's what happened because like, you're right. The stigma and it's like the concept and like the way that us as a culture, like view therapy and mental health and stuff like that. It's just not talked about. Yeah. But yeah, I think one day I was just like, man, I can't do this no more. Like I want to be better. I need help. Who can I talk to? And I thought of Ben. I was just like that. This is one person who I feel like right now, like I said, he made me feel heard
on that journey.
Yeah. I think he can help me, and Leo was like, yeah, I can get you Ben's numbers. Like, everything all right? I'm like, yeah, man, I had no problem explaining it to him. So yeah, it's been a challenge so far, but I'm excited for what's to come. And I like talking to people about mental wellness. If you can't tell,
you do, you get excited about it.
Yeah.
More than most people. Ally, what about you? How do you destigmatize like anxiety? loneliness, a couple things that you mentioned.
That's such a great question. I want to come back to that, but I want to say, Carlos, I am very proud of you.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, thank you.
Admitting when you need help is not easy, and vulnerability is very scary. There's a big fear around being vulnerable, but there is power in that vulnerability, and there's strength and growth. And I'm just really proud of you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that is spot on. I think once I push past, like we're talking about, past like the scary, like not wanting to reveal emotions to people. Yeah, I think I'm getting towards like empowering myself and learning and growing. So yeah, I think these type of conversations and being around people like Ben, like Ally, like Leo, our listeners, it's awesome. And I think this is what makes the world go round. Yeah. Thank you, Ally.
Yeah, there really is such, I will say, I think that opening up your emotions is just can be really terrifying, but there's such a, there's not growth without, in my opinion, like fear or vulnerability or change. Yeah. And so you can't grow if you're not willing to be humble, and have the humility and vulnerability, for that, as scary as it can be. I think that the easiest way to break the stigma is to keep talking about it. And so I think that there is power in communication and connection and vulnerability, and talking about it with people, being in connection and in community with folks who are, whether they're experiencing the same things, but the moment it's scary to take that first step and admit something, right, to a group of people, or, whether it's one person, a small group, a large group, to admit something, but it just makes you realize how not alone you are. And there's it breaks that loneliness factor.
Yeah.
Because everybody is going through the same thing in some form or fashion.
Yeah. Probably a lot more than we'd like to admit.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And asking for help is not easy.
Yeah, it's not.
No,
it's not, probably the most terrifying thing.
I think it has to be, because there's like an element, number one, of thinking that something is wrong with you. We're not perfect. It's obvious to just say we're not perfect, but to be like, oh crap, something's wrong with me. Like, this is bad. No, it's normal. Like, you're human. Yes, something is wrong with you. Something is wrong with everybody. But first, at knowing like, oh crap, like something's wrong. But like fixing it is literally a part of your growth. Like, you growing up is you also fixing and developing yourself. Not even like fixing yourself. It's just the development piece. Like,
it's all part of that human experience.
Yeah, it's part of exactly. That's a great way to put it. It's literally just a part of the human experience.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's good. How about professionally? Because I feel like it's scarier professionally.
It is.
Lois, the reason I say that is because to say, like, right now we're in a personal sense and you're my friend, to be like, hey, I've gone through some trauma that I'm dealing with and I'm feeling a type of way, for you to tell your boss that is a whole nother level of risk, let me just call it, of you being pushed aside or you've been put in a different bucket. Sorry, Ally. Go ahead. You're about to say something.
Oh, no, you're good. I was just going to talk about imposter syndrome.
Okay.
Because imposter syndrome is a real thing. Professionally. And I think we all suffer from it. I truly just think that everybody needs to realize that nobody has all the answers and everybody's just figuring out as they go. And knowing that whether you feel like you're worrying about like your perception in a group of people, or your perception in a presentation, in a meeting, even one-on-one with your boss, that nobody has it all together, and that we're all just kind of taking everything day by day and learning from each other. And we're all in a period of growth and all on a journey. And that I think just realizing that and realizing like the human and emotional element of it, I think takes the pressure off of, or it can help to take the pressure off of.
Yeah. And like, I'll give an example of what that looks like for me, or looked like for me very recently. because to your point, it is difficult. In fact, it's so difficult that I chose specifically not to, admit how I was feeling about certain things. And like, so one of the things that I'm experiencing is like anxiety, some social anxiety, and just overall, so I didn't really know how to explain that or like break that down. Plus I had like a fear of like, okay, if I drop this curtain, then they're gonna try and make some correlation with like my performance or something, what I mean? Or like my workload or something like that. I don't want to be punished for admitting my feelings in a sense. But one day, it got to the point where, and this is no fault of the job, in my opinion, it was just like a lack of just being true to myself and true to my peers and leaders. I got completely overwhelmed one day, and I was just like, whoa, oh my goodness, I can't do this. But at the same time, I had clients like, banging at the door. Hey, delivery date. Hey, and I reached out to my boss because like, they'll pile you up with work. But at the same time, there's honesty and like transparency policies. Like, let us know if you're too overwhelmed. And I never took advantage of that because I felt like, they'll make some sort of connection with your performance, whatever. Yeah. But I'm like, I got crazy anxiety right now. We got all these deadlines tomorrow. This client's kind of like can be a little frustrated sometimes. Like my head is like, I can't even think. And I was like, so after I sent that message to my boss, because I slacked it to him, he didn't respond for about 5 minutes because I saw he was in a meeting. I had a million thoughts in my head while he was like, before he got back to me, but he finally was like, oh my God, this is the stuff that we're looking for. Like, thank you for like, being human, being honest. And then ever since that day, I think I've grown professionally to be able to be honest when I'm a little in over my head, because as I very recently transitioned into tech. Sometimes you have a tendency to like being a yes man. Wrong answer. It can definitely burn you in the long run. So I'm not saying everybody will be that way. Like if but I think it definitely can, to Ally's point, it definitely can yield some growth and make some things better for you. But yeah, I'll never forget that. Those 5 minutes I was sitting there like, oh my God, he's gonna read it and be like, oh, this dude not is trying freaking, to work. He's not trying to work. Yeah. He's mentally unstable. Yeah, he's talking about anxiety, but no, complete opposite.
Ally,
how do you feel like workplace culture and conversation creates, like, how important do you think the environment is to be able to admit something like that? Because I think that plays like such an important role, whether it is like your 100%. Relationship with your boss, your relationship with upper like management, and the environment in which they've created for you to be comfortable enough to share that too. I think that's an element sometimes that gets overlooked.
Yeah, the environment is probably the largest piece. And the reason that I felt that tension is because in the environment, no one else had done that or expressed that. I hadn't seen that. But like everyone, like we've said, in a personal setting, you're not the only one that feels like that. So when I finally admitted that, like with some etiquette, kind of like let everybody know, like, hey guys, if you're feeling something, please let us know. Like, we're all human. And then he just straight up like started airing his own dirty laundry, not even dirty laundry, but just like look, I make mistakes. I get anxious. Sometimes I gotta go freaking play off. Sometimes I just gotta let the client know, dude, I gotta get back to you later. But the climate definitely played a large piece of it, because up to that point, there was no process in place to vent. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's when I reached that breaking point.
The power in your story too is that you opened up the door for that, and you opened up the door for other people.
Yeah.
And so if there's one tip that I can also say to everyone listening, is that you being vulnerable opens up the doors for others to be able to be vulnerable as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 100%. It's inspirational, whether it's professionally or personally.
That's true. Facts.
Mic drop.
Seriously. I got to marinate on that one for a second. Ally, I was actually going to ask you, like, because this is like two great points that both of y'all are bringing up. Like, you've done it both on the consultative, stage.
Mm-hmm.
You've been the practitioner and you've done it, and you've also been like a leader of a team. Like you've done both. So you've had to, number one, be in the position where maybe you had anxiety about your upper management, maybe you still technically are. And then also you're on the other side on like, I have to be responsible for these people and make sure that they feel comfortable and coming to me about what's really going on in your life. So like, how do you, I just want to go on the manager's standpoint first on how do you, because I've experienced it, you are a fantastic boss and being human and making sure like, hey, do you need support? Do you need time off? Do you need a small break? You need less work? All right, cool. If not, then here's the work that we got to do. And I think you could do it well, So how do you balance? It's not even a balance. How do you execute on both of those?
It's not easy, especially when there's a transition that sometimes doesn't always get talked about, where you go from being somebody's colleague to then being responsible for that team's performance. Whereas if you come in at that manager level and you're responsible for a team, you're kind of starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Whereas when you go from being somebody's colleague or peer to essentially being more into that manager, team lead, et cetera role, I think that there's a decision you have to make on what ends up also taking precedence in that relationship and in that rapport that you're building with that person. But I've always led with the personal first, professional second, where is like, I want to get to know my team members personally, because that helps me understand also like their intrinsic motivations at work. What do they value? What matters to them personally? What matters to them professionally? Because it helps me lead them better. It helps me understand them better. I think that a skill that not many people talk about a lot, I know Ben talked about it and I'll continue to harp on it, is the importance of asking questions. I think that is a skill that is highly valued and underutilized, as well as active listening. I have heard from my team that sometimes I listen a little bit too well, because I kind of not necessarily take everything on, but I really I try to listen as deeply and as intrinsically as I can. But I would say asking questions is a way to execute on it, getting to know your team, getting to know, understand like their processes day to day, what they lead with, so that you can help to understand to lead them better. And not being afraid to be vulnerable yourself, because when you lead with vulnerability, as I mentioned, you tend to get vulnerability back. And so I've just always tried to create a culture and a team of trust. The word transparency has been a sticking point for me, where like I don't always love that word, because I think that there's sometimes can be an element of like, you're using the word transparency, but you're not really executing on the meaning of the word. So for me, it's more. So I think that I can, Leo. Great question. I think that sometimes people use the word transparency as an excuse to not be vulnerable. I'll say that one more time. I think that what ends up happening is that folks will say how important transparency is, but sometimes transparency doesn't always equal honesty and vulnerability. And I think that there's a power in being clear and kind and honest and vulnerable that doesn't always equate to transparency. And sometimes I feel like transparency is a buzzword that just ends up getting used that is maybe not.
I think I get what you're saying. To say it another way and also make sure I'm on the right page, I think that I actively do this most of the time, especially professionally. You experienced it, I think, like a week or 2 weeks ago, to where I may be transparent and I'll tell you things that you may ask about, but I'm not going to be vulnerable and tell you the things that are actually emotionally connected to me unless it's a personal relationship.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Just want to make sure I was on the same page with you there.
You're on the same page.
Yeah, I don't think
asking questions is a key thing.
I don't think I can really add much to that. I mean, everything that Ally said, like, but me personally, before I had like a sense of let's call it emotional intelligence. I always made sure to be like a passionate leader. So breaking that third wall early, even when it wasn't like common, especially in like the industry I was working in. Sometimes when you're just working in around a bunch of let's just call it like the construction industry or something like that, or it's not common for a dude to come in there and talk about his feelings, or even just like say like I'm having a hard time, because there's a stigma there that like, oh, that means that's a bad worker. But in introductions, I state like intentions, and I'm very clear. I've always been super clear about that. Like, look, man, I'm not just saying this. I need you to let me know, like, when you're feeling something, like just pretty much put that out there and beat that drum all the time, so that maybe one day they'll use it. Maybe they never will. But, always have that, leading with the personal first, like she said, and then professional second. So they always know that. So when I, if I assign a task or something, and then they know that in front of that, there's always like an opportunity to, if they need to put that aside for a second and chat on something or get some help, anything like that, that's always there. And like the challenging part about being a leader is that like, you just got to accept it. Sometimes they'll use it. Sometimes you may have an employee who never, confides in you, or like never like comes to you about anything, or they're just hard to crack and you just never figure them out. It's just how they function, so yeah, that's the challenging part. But yeah, definitely lead on being personal first and then professionally second. I think that's the biggest one for me.
The other ending note I'll add to that is that you touched on it, Carlos, is that everybody is different and needs to be led or managed differently. And understanding the uniqueness to each of your team members, I feel like, is very important.
Yeah. Do a quick sidebar, Los, because I think we have the same experience in this. And this is why I feel like I'm a little bit lucky with my life. But being in the military, it's a complete opposite. In the tech space or corporate environment, you're supposed to, be friends with, in a certain sense, like be friends with and all that good stuff. I think this happened to me and you both, Gottlieb, from what I know, but we're transitioning from, let's just call it individual contributor into leader or specialist to sergeant in the military. I literally got a call before I got my promotion packet, is what they call it, before like it dropped. They know that I'm going to get promoted. They just got to do the ceremony. I got a call at 5 a.m. Okay. I don't even know when the ceremony is happening. Also, this isn't like a army weekend. We're not going away. I'm in my regular life right now as a reservist. Get called at 5 a.m. from our leader of our platoon. So he's over, which, Los, you can probably know who this is. They're calling me at 5 a.m. Okay. It's not extra. It's big boy. I'm just going to go that way. Anyway, 5 a.m. I get a call and this person's like, hey, like, what's going on? And I'm like, nothing, Sergeant. Like, how could is everything okay? Like, do we need to leave? Like, is something going on? It's like, no, I just wanted to let you know that you're about to get promoted to E5 and I need you to cut off everybody else. I said, well, like, what are we talking about? He's like, yeah, like you're no longer their friends. I understand that you got friends at this level and stuff like that, but that stops today. And I'm like, all right, well, 5 a.m. Yeah, sorry. Yep, gotcha. But that's like a perpetual thing on literally the day that you go from 4 to 5 in the military or whatever. At that point, you are no longer associated with, you're not friends with, no matter if you have the same job, you are now separating, you're a part of a different group of people, and you treat the other people a completely different way. That's at least what we're taught in the military, is you lead with the professional. I'm now your boss, your leader, you're now my subordinate. You do exactly what I say. Completely different mindset. Me and Los do not follow that. There's certain things that legally we have to do, but we don't follow that. And I think that's why so many people respect Los. And I just want to say that because there are probably military people that are listening to this. You do not have to follow, let's just call it the old regime, and this is corporate and in the military, of what you have been taught. What you need to do is you need to figure out what works, which is to Ally's last point. You need to figure out what people are able to listen to gravitate towards the most. If you're going to lead people, you have to gain followers.
What challenge or what tips or information, or how would you tell somebody that's going through that transition right now, and challenges that you all faced with that transition? What would you tell somebody of how to
I'd say
not be afraid to be vulnerable?
Oh, well, and this is kind of it varies, depending on what type of leaders you've been under. But the first place to start is think about your favorite leader.
Yep.
And then think about your least favorite leader.
100%.
And then think about why that was your favorite leader, and think about why that was your least favorite leader. And I think that's a good starting point for what style of leadership you're going to have, what you shouldn't have, what deflected you as a soldier going to talk to your, senior or whatever the case may be, and what made you feel like you can confide in someone and let someone know that something was wrong. I think that's a good starting point, but it definitely takes some work within yourself, because you got to be sound in a way, to be able to take on leadership, especially at a mental level. But yeah, I think that's a good start.
Yeah. Being mature in the situation. I think what I tried to always lead with was like, everyone knows what you're supposed to do. Oh, you're supposed to go off and do this now, or whatever. And everyone's always worried too. If you're 4, you better not leave and treat me this way. Everyone's always worried about that. But what I did in the transition period was like, yo, like, you know who I am. Like, that we still got to do work. I just happen to be the one who they're telling you to do the work. Like, that's like, I understand exactly where you've been, and I'm not trying to boss you around. But unfortunately, I now have to go gather information, or I have to do a different job. So it looks a little bit different for me. I think everyone respects, like, yo, I understand exactly where you've been. I'm not far from it. Like, this isn't I've earned this. I'm not far from where you are at all. I just happen to achieve one thing that now you're about to do right after me. That's the only difference between us right now.
And I think you touched on a really important point, is the word respect. Because that plays such a pivotal role, not only professionally, but personally as well. Whether it's romantic relationships, whether it's friend relationships, any sort of relationships equal respect. And so I really love that you touched on respect.
And you gain respect before you get the promotion.
Yep.
Wow, another mic drop. Thanks, Ally. I ironically, and I'd tell you got the transitions on the day. I was gonna actually talk about building relationships in the corporate environment, but we don't have time for that, so maybe another time. Now it's time for our Fast Five. Los, did you have anything? I'm sorry, before we move on and wrap this up.
No, I think we're good. I think this is the first podcast in a while where our guests, kind of switched it on us. We was getting interviewed for a little bit.
Like I said, that's what I was expecting.
I love it.
It's been fantastic to have this
Let's
conversation.
Let's talk about relationships in the future.
We don't. No.
In
the next
future,
one.
not
in
now.
The future.
On the next one. Relationships in the future.
Let's do it. Before we get into this Fast Five, I do want to ask, how should the people locate you if they want to get in contact with you to learn about consulting, to get your, what'd you call it? It's not a PBR list, is it?
TBR. PBR. I loved that though. We'll call it a
all right. Publisher.
PBR, public reading list.
Public reading list. Hey.
Done. Another mic drop. No, I LinkedIn, my name is still my maiden name, so it's Ally Holmes on LinkedIn. My Bookstagram is still my maiden name. It's Bovie's Books. And then on, Bookstagram, LinkedIn.
Gotcha. Cool.
Those are
and
the main two.
All be in the show notes at the end of this.
Mm-hmm.
All right. To wrap this up, we are going to do a Fast Five, which luckily for me and Los, you have not been prepped for. And then after that, it's all we're going to do is five questions. It's going to be short answer, super easy softball questions, no pressure at all. These do have to be answered, though. I know you got some other pending questions, but these do have to be answered. And then at the end of that, which is the most important, we always like to ask our guests this. If you had to give a keynote speech, or maybe if you had to write a book about anything and it's automatically a New York bestseller, what would that book be about? What would you want to say? What message would you want to get across? Got it?
Got it.
All right. Sounds good. First question. If you're on a game show, what game show do you think you could win? Or would you want to be on?
Ooh. I think that I would be good at Jeopardy.
Oh,
I love trivia.
Okay, Jeopardy. I like that one. I like that show. I enjoy it. I'm not sure if I can be on it.
That's a lofty goal, possibly, but I would say Jeopardy. Lofty goal.
You should try it. Do you have a favorite book quote? A lot of people have movie quotes. Do you have a favorite book quote?
It's hard to riddle anything off the top of my head.
Okay.
There is one from The Perks of Being a Wallflower that says, "And in that moment, we were infinite." And it has stuck with me for years. So I really love that one from a fictional perspective. And I'll hit you with a nonfiction one you can put in the description later.
Okay, sounds good. I like it. This is an interesting question. Is a hot dog a sandwich? Los. I'm starting to do a fast for y'all too. Los trying to figure it out.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Is a hot dog a sandwich? You got the meat in the middle and okay, sounds good. Yes. This is a very important question, actually. This is one that actually does need a thoughtful response. It's a question that Kenny holds near and dear to his heart. Rest in peace, Kenny. He's probably on vacation or something like that somewhere. Can you cherish everyone?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, that was a quick yes.
I'll elaborate because you wanted a more thought-provoking answer to that. I would say that everybody has a unique story and a unique role in your life and a unique role in the world. And I think that there's a different level of degree in which you could cherish everybody. But I do agree that to say you couldn't cherish everyone makes it sound like you don't cherish and believe in the good of humanity. And so I would say you can cherish everyone.
Okay. I love that. You're saying that you can cherish essentially the potential of everyone being lovable or cherishable or appreciated, respected. I love that. I have not even thought of that perspective before.
I think that there is an element in which you can respect everyone too.
Yes, and I think that that's an element of cherish.
I agree.
I'm going to start using an argument on Kenny. Thank you. All right, last question of the Fast Five.
Done.
So I relate this to music, but what book do you wish you could read for the first time again?
Oh, Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Lori Gottlieb.
I thought you were telling me I should talk to somebody.
No, it's called Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Lori Gottlieb. Carlos, you would really enjoy this, especially as you are starting your journey with therapy and what that means for you. As somebody who has been, in and out of different modes of therapy, talked to different psychologists, psychotherapists since the age of, how old are you in 5th grade?
Yeah. 11.
I don't know how old you were in 5th grade. In and out of different
5th grade, yeah.
Yes, I have a lot of experience with just mental health and mental health professionals, but and my experiences with therapy, Lori Gottlieb she's a therapist, and she talks. It's fictional in nature in that she doesn't reveal her patients' names, obviously, but the stories are based in reality and what she has gone through as a therapist with her own kind of unique journey, and it's funny and it's heartwarming and it's engrossing and enlightening, and I highly recommend it. So
what's the name of that again?
Maybe You Should Talk to Someone.
Maybe you should definitely talk to somebody.
Maybe
on the cover of the book is a Kleenex box, which I really love.
Wow. Oh,
I
snap.
would probably say that one. No.
That's awesome. I love how you have like different. Every time I've asked her a book question, she gives me a different answer. That was
I got you.
That was my thing today.
It's you stumped me really with that movie. I'm still can't believe I don't have an answer for that, Leo. I know. I can't believe I don't have an answer for it, but I will get an answer to it.
There's a lot of people out there who are watching this who are probably like, I can't believe you did say this when it should have been Harry Potter. Everybody's like, Harry Potter, Harry Potter. Artie, our last question as we close this out. And first of all, like, thank you, because this has been an amazing conversation. But if you had to write a book, give a speech to 50 million people, and you could say anything, what would it be?
Don't be afraid of the stillness. I have suffered with anxiety and depression for a good chunk of my life and have done a lot of deep kind of soul searching and self-awareness exercises and just deep introspection. And as somebody who is also a busybody, as you said, Carlos, I don't sit still very well. And it is something that I have come to cherish and love. And so I would say, don't be afraid of the stillness. That would be something I would like to talk about in a keynote or write in a book, and the beauty and what you can learn in the stillness and the mental health journey that got me to that place.
Wow. Thank you. Ally Holmes, everybody. I appreciate you hopping on, taking your time to have a good conversation with us. We touched on a lot of topics, a lot of things I'm sure we could have gone much deeper in. But yeah, thank you for helping us out.
Thank you for having me.
Some book recommendations that I think we're probably going to tap into now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And some
y'all are incredible.
Too.
Thank you guys for having me. For anybody listening, subscribe. These men are incredible. I hope to be on here again. I've told Leo, I told you this before, have me on as a cameo. I'll be the cameo in the background.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
I love it.
I love the work that you guys are doing. It is important. It is needed. It is, don't stop what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Ally.
Yeah. As much as I'm passionate about that, I need to hear that as well. I need to hear that as well. So thank you for that.
You're doing the important work.
Appreciate it. All right. Like we always say, pursue excellence and cherish everyone. Peace.
Peace.
Wait. All right. You just enjoyed that episode. I know it because you've made it to this point. If you wouldn't do me and the fellas a favor, while you're joining us at our dinner table, you're having food, maybe you're on a run, wherever you're listening to the episode, please take the time, 1 second, hit like, subscribe, and we will see you on the next one. Peace.